Hey everybody, my name is Old School Nerd. Welcome back in. Okay, we're still in Throwback Thursday, and we got another request. Technically from the same person, because this person did 2 requests this week. And it's Robert. Robert went a completely different direction. So he goes, King for a Day by Pierce the Veil, official music video. This is definitely a Throwback Wednesday. Dude, Throwback Thursday. Get your shit right. What do you think you are? Me? Can't be making mistakes like that. This is the second and final request for the week, I swear. Okay. So, Robert did Lamb of God. Now he's going Pierce the Veil. Those are 2 totally different spectrums. Everything I said about Lamb of God being like, no nonsense, bunch of grizzled old dudes that just come in there to kick your ass. Pierce the Veil is like a bunch of young guys screaming and yelling, you know. It's completely different. They're like completely, totally ends of the spectrum. Robert's going weird on me, man. All right, so let's check this out. Throwback Thursday, Pierce the Veil, King for a Day, featuring Kellin Quinn, the official video. Let's check this out. Oh, by the way, like and subscribe to the channel. Give this video a thumbs up if you like it. Subscribe to the channel if you haven't subscribed, because it does help us. It really, really does. I'm still seeing on the analytics that only 20% of the people that watch my videos are subscribed. That is crazy. That means 80% of the people that actually watch my videos are like, psh, fuck that guy. Which is fine. I'd probably do it to me too. Most of the time, I don't like my stuff. All right. Check us out on oldschoolnerd.com. It's got all of our social media posts. It's got the Patreon link and, of course, the merchandise store where you too can buy a Old School Nerd shirt that says 100% real on the front, and on the back it says 100% real reactions, 100% real mistakes. Because that's how we roll here. All right. Pierce the Veil, King for a Day. Van Halen, Hot for the Teacher? Hot for Teacher? Maybe. Oh no, never mind. He's there at a job. Working at a bank. I don't know anything about that.
Have a super wonderful day now.
Thank you too, sir. Thank you.
Hubert Smalls. You're killing me, Smalls.
Oh, hold on, folks. Don't put your things away just yet. We're going to have ourselves a little group meeting. By the way, I want to thank you all for that pay cut you took last week. That was very sweet of you. Look, I don't want to say that we're having an audit, but the IRS is visiting us Monday to take a look at our files and our records. Well, long story short, you are all coming in tomorrow to help make the books look right. Vic, I want you and Kellin to stay late tonight to make sure everything's ready for the second quarter. And for the rest of you, I will see you here tomorrow morning, bright, early. Team spirit. Yes. Ooh, milk does a body good.
What? Did that dude just say, milk does a body good? What the hell? It's very, very, very aggressive. Again, I stop it on the part of the video that I always seem to stop it on when we look at the drummer's kit. Again, everything is very level. For some reason, in the 2000s and the early 2010s, it seemed like every young aggressive. I don't know what kind of metal we would refer to it as. I refer to it as SoCal because it was always that dynamic beat, but it was always really hyped. And it kind of reminds me of like not Blink 182, but like, okay, Yellow Card, Sum 41, all these bands that were doing this kind of SoCal metal, SoCal rock, but it was very commercial and stuff. Pierce the Veil is one of those bands. Falling in Reverse, you know, but of course that also translates over to bands like I Prevail that are on the back end of that big explosion of that kind of style. SoCal metal, that SoCal punk / metal / commercial rock was kind of the grunge of the 2000s. It just didn't have a name. And at that time, because Travis Barker was the first one to really do it, all the drummers were putting all their toms level, not angled, not up. They were all doing that, stand over the top of the drums and just do that. Yeah, that's the kind of look. And it's kind of progressed even to now, where all of your cymbals are horizontal mounted, all your tom skins are all horizontal, nothing is angled. They kind of stepped away from that 80s arena heavy metal look and kind of went to this minimalistic look. Totally get it. But those of us who are old enough and have been playing drums before all of this, remember the jazz styles, the Buddy Rich styles. And that's what this really kind of originated as, was that quick jazz style that I love growing up and I still love to this day. I just want to know if the drummers of these younger bands realize that they're playing Buddy Rich style. And it's not. Travis Barker got it from Buddy Rich. Buddy Rich was the originator of this style, and he's the godfather. If you don't know who Buddy Rich is, you need to search that because it will blow your mind. Buddy Rich, Neil Peart, John Bonham, you just go down the list. And then those guys then lead into the drummers of today. They just don't realize it. I do enjoy bands like Pierce the Veil, I Prevail, Falling in Reverse, the bands of the last 8-9 years where they take the stylings of that pop feel, because it is very poppy. It's very popular feeling. When I say pop, please understand, I don't mean Mariah Carey. I don't mean that, or Adele. I mean popular. What is popular? What is the hype music of a certain genre? This is the popular music of the 2010s, okay, of the last 10 years, where it's very upbeat, young, dynamic. Musical tones are very dynamic. The arrangements are designed to be quick transitions into different sounds. Nothing really. The idea of this type of music is designed to where nothing sounds the same. The transitions amongst the timing signatures, the arrangement progresses throughout the song. Rarely in the 2010s did you see any music where it started one way and ended that way. The idea was to transition throughout the song, giving it a different feel. And by doing so, gave it an elevated sense of musicianship. That was the progression. Remember, in the 80s, for metal, it was one way all the way through. The verse, chorus, bridge, guitar solo, reprisal chorus, ending, the classic melodic industry music standard for radio play, MTV play, music videos of the 70s and 80s and into the 90s, then progressed after 2000, where you tried to break the mold as much as possible so you could stand out because you didn't want to get lost in the shuffle. So bands like this not only had let's be honest, they had the sex appeal because they were young guys, bad boys with tattoos, and, they related because every teenage guy and young man was like, I could be them. Every girl was like, I want to be with them. But yet they still stayed androgynous enough where they transitioned amongst all the genders that were then coming around. And as knowledge of social constructs began to explode in social media, these bands were able to relate. And that's why it is the way it is for those bands. I do like the way they do their stuff. I like the way they've arranged all their stuff. The music video nowadays, even though it's telling a story of greed and damn the man, save the empire. If you haven't seen Empire Records, this entire video is pretty much Empire Records. Without Mark being eaten by Guar's drum set. Let's not go into that. Go see the movie, okay? But the music video has less appeal to me as the musicianship, the story they're telling in the music, and the way the arrangement progresses throughout in the same way a lot of bands at this time were doing. Do your best to break the mold. Do your best to stand out. Because in the 2000s and 2010s, there was an eruption of a lot of young bands all trying to get that little spotlight. And every band wanted to, literally, every band wanted to be the new My Chemical Romance. Think about it. Because from 2005 until 2010, My Chemical Romance were the kings. Right? And there were other bands like them. Okay? So every band was like, well, I want to be the next one that shocks the world, that does something different. Because My Chemical Romance's style was unique. It was different. Also, this is the time when metal was dominated by bands like, Systems of a Down. And System of a Down took what we think of as metal and just into the distance with it because you had no idea where they were going. Well, popular rock was doing the same exact thing. So when you go back and you watch this stuff on Throwback Thursday, you have to remember the age where it comes out, the mental and the social construct of where music was going at the time was to try to be something different. While at the same time, be within the norm. It was so confusing. And it's still confusing now. The difference is this is still back when the music industry ran music still. This is still back in the days where record labels and stuff owned all of the music play out there. Nowadays, it's YouTube conglomerations, YouTube channels, YouTube partnerships. We see, because especially with COVID, all the stuff you see now is Twitch, YouTube, Twitter, Instagram, Snapchat, TikTok. If your band does not dominate in these arenas, it's the same thing as trying to be an independent record label back in the 90s, 2000s, and 2010s. It just didn't work. So to go back and see how music industry was still pushing bands like this back then, it's kind of cute to watch. But nowadays, it's all done digitally through social media. I don't know why I got off on this tangent, but when I see a band like this, very talented, very young and stuff, and I just see how they progress to get their message out, to get their art out, it's so different than it is now. Interesting. Very interesting. Again, like the dynamic of the band. I like the way they I like the way they actually do a good job of transitioning through the song, different dynamics. Very, very, very clean. This is indicative of the musical style at the time. And this only goes back about, in the last 10 years. Bands that were playing static time signatures, static arrangements from beginning to end, were not surviving in this time. If you weren't willing to step out and do manipulative dynamic arrangements with timing changes, with seamless transitions, you weren't around at this time if you couldn't do it. So it's to me, it's one of my favorite times of music, but also at the time I had stepped away from metal at the time and rock in general because I was into jazz and folk music. And jazz and folk music have lived in the dynamic arrangement for decades. So when I see bands like that, I was like, oh, okay. But I wasn't into it at the time. I do like now, since I've come back in the last 6 months and all of you have showed me how metal has now embraced that as well. So we've seen how things that metal bands like System of a Down and a classic example of this is 1990, a little band from New York comes out, kind of in the underground scene, and they put out an album that was about 10 years ahead of its time and was so outside of the metal box. And it wasn't just because of how they looked or the color of their skin, but their type of music was about 10 years ahead of its time. There are transitional musics, whether it be, for instance, Guns N' Roses' Appetite of Destruction, Nirvana's, Nevermind, different types of music bands that come out with something that is so unique that it captures the imagination. Technically, when this band came out with theirs, they were right in that little pocket between Guns N' Roses' Appetite for Destruction and Nirvana's Nevermind that they kind of got lost in the wash. The band I'm talking about, Living Colour. When they came out with Cult of Personality, it was huge. It was my favorite song when I was a teenager. I was into Appetite for Destruction. I was into that album, huge. And even their subsequent albums after I thought were really well written, but they weren't critically acclaimed and they weren't really accepted by the industry because they were breaking. The industry was like, we're going to grunge. Well, Living Colour wasn't grunge, so they kind of got left by the wayside with other bands. And they got kind of caught in the wash between Appetite for Destruction, Metallica's Black Album, and the fact they were breaking so many rules, the world wasn't ready for them. And they were about 10 years ahead of their time. So when coming back on the end of the grunge era, when bands like, System of a Down come out and totally flip the script, the same way that Living Colour did with Cult of Personality and Letters to a Landlord, okay, back in early 90s, we were ripe for a change. The music world was ready. They were coming out of grunge. They needed something that was going to be different because nu metal sucked. It's true. For those who loved grunge, to get into nu metal where they were doing this synchronization of turntable, club mix with heavy guitars, if you weren't really into it and you were looking for something that was still just rock and roll and metal, until Slipknot came out, and then of course System of a Down, when those bands came out, Avenged Sevenfold, those bands said, no, metal is metal and this is what it is, and we're not going to nu metal. And they just stepped away from it. So it was ripe for that. So there are all these bands that don't follow within a set within the industry and how it's going. Pierce the Veil fit directly into where they were supposed to be. And they just belong in there. Similar to how when you're looking at System of a Down, they were outside. They were outside of the box, but they were so good, they revolutionized the industry. Appetite for Destruction, Nevermind from Nirvana, changing the industry and leading the industry on. And somewhere in between there, you have these little bands like Living Colour and certain bands that like all of a sudden I was like, whoa, what is this? But they get lost in the wave of stuff. So this is my first Pierce the Veil. It's not, I appreciate the styling of the music, the vocalization of the young, high piercing vocals. There's so many bands like them, whether it be Falling in Reverse or, of this time period. Black Veil Brides, Hollywood Undead, Panic at the Disco, right? My Chemical Romance. There were so many bands that took this young front singer, young band, it was just as much about the image for the masses, for the young masses, as it was about the music, unfortunately, for me. Now, some of you may come back and go, dude, you're so way off. You're so full of shit. This is the greatest band ever, blah, blah, blah. Fine. I missed all this because I was dealing with classic jazz and folk music and rocking out to Led Zeppelin and Jimi Hendrix. And if I was wrong for doing that, you can go fuck yourself. Because without those guys, little bands like this don't even exist. Besides, you know me. I do this stuff real and honest. If I don't like it, I don't like it. Do I like what they're doing? Yes. Is it on my playlist? No. It's cookie cutter to me.